For Capistrano Unified School District. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. Parents, adults in the lives of our students, we appreciate you being with us. Tonight, we will be talking about all things college admissions as it pertains to you as the parent of a student who is on their college journey. If you are just joining us, we did add a link in the chat for a pre-survey. The QR code is also on the screen, so if you don't mind, we would love for you to complete this pre-survey so we can get some baseline data on your knowledge of the college admissions process. We appreciate it. Thank you. Let's go ahead and move forward because we want to honor your time tonight. Some housekeeping items as always as we get started. Tonight is a webinar, of course, and we will be providing you with the link to tonight's presentation after this evening. And anytime you see the hyperlink icon on a slide, that means that when you get the copy of the presentation, you'll be able to click on that resource and be routed to a link online. So keep your eyes out for that as we're moving along tonight, and just know that there's a linked resource for you after today. Please use the Q&A. The chat is currently on, but it's difficult for us to monitor the chat. So we do ask that if you have a question for our team, to please put it in the Q&A. That way we'll be able to answer your questions and make sure that we're not missing anybody. Whereas if you put your question in the chat, we could very well miss it. And then finally, this webinar is being recorded. So just know that after tonight, you will still have access to everything that we shared on our YouTube channel. It'll be posted there. And all participants will also be automatically emailed a link to the recording by tomorrow. So just know that you can refer back to this anytime you want. And we do have a very robust YouTube channel with hundreds of videos, recordings like this one of college and career topics for our students. So Futureology is the district's college and career counseling program. So we are college and career counselors, and there is one of us at every single high school in our district. We're so fortunate to have a college and career counselor for every high school. We are credentialed school counselors. We are school counselors, and we happen to have expertise in the area of college admissions counseling and, of course, career counseling, right? So we bring that to our work with students here in the district, and we are very data-driven. Everything that we do is based on the needs of the district and the students in our district, and we take that very seriously. So we're not out here trying to provide random acts of guidance, right? We are being very intentional with our work, and we're trying to give our families and our students what they are asking for and what we see the need is based on data. We support students in a number of ways. We are at the the high school campuses and the College and Career Center. We are meeting with students for one-on-one appointments. We're providing in-class presentations and classroom lessons, workshops during the school day, before school, during lunch, after school. We provide webinars. We help put on the college fair every year. Anything college and career related, our team is working on for the students of the district. So tonight, there are three of us presenting. And I thought I'd give you a little bit of background on each of us so you have a sense of who's with you this evening and what we have to kind of share with you based on our experience. I'll start with myself and I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves. My name is Bea. I am a college and career counselor with CUSD-Futureology for the district. I'm at Elise Nagel High School. I'm currently an executive board member for the Western Association for College Admission Counseling. I'm very happy and privileged to serve on the board. And in addition to that, I was formerly a UCI admissions reader, so I bring that to my work with our students. Linda? Oh, and Linda, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. My name is Linda King, and I am a Futureology College and Career Counselor, and I'm at Cal Prep and Union High School. I, along with Bea, serve as an executive board member for WACAC, so we sit on the board together, and I am a current UCLA admissions reader. So we've just begun our reading cycle actually this week, so that is the expertise that I bring, and I will hand it over to Brianne.
Hello, I am Brianne Boyle. I actually don't work with CUSD, but I am an independent college advisor. And I'm based in the Orange County area. I work with students all over, but I've been doing this for about 14 years. My company is BB College Prep. I also am a former president with the Western Association for College Admission Counseling, and currently I also teach courses in the UCLA College Counseling Certificate Program in their graduate school. So I am very excited to be here to chat with you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brianne. Okay, so let's get into it for tonight. So this is our agenda. It is a packed agenda, and we're going to try to get you out of here on time. But this is what we're going to be covering tonight. We're going to be talking about your students' college planning timeline, right? Pathways to college, the state of college admissions. What does it look like right now across the country, right, for students? We're going to talk about admissions factors, about testing, about college fit factors, right? How do we find a good fit for your student? We'll touch on exploration tools that you and your students can use. We'll talk about the senior application timeline, right? For those of you who have seniors coming up next year, perhaps, or the year after. And then we'll talk about the parent role, right? And then we'll finish out with Q&A. So that is our plan for tonight. Let's go ahead and get started with a quick poll, if you will. If you could do me a favor, if you could go to menti.com on your phone or on your device, you can enter in this code 56874872, or you can scan the QR code. I would love to get a sense of what your concerns are as you are supporting your student through their college journey. In one or two words, right? If you had to sum it up, that top concern, what drove you to this webinar tonight, right? What feelings are driving you here tonight? But in one or two words, what are your top concerns as you're thinking about supporting your student during this process? And then while you're doing that, let's go ahead and pull this up. And let's take a look at what we're all feeling right now. Okay, let's read the room a little bit. But thank you for those of you who have already started sharing with us. Again, it's menti.com. If you look at the screen, the code is up in the top middle of the screen. It's 56874872 at menti.com. And right now I'm seeing timeline, right? Finding the right match. FAFSA. So we're talking financial aid is a big concern for a lot of us. And that's really common, right? Paying for college is stressful. I'm seeing just being prepared, right? Choosing the best college. So definitely fit is at the kind of top of our mind right now, what I'm seeing. Getting good grades, admissions tricks unknown. I don't know if we have any like super secret tricks to share with you tonight, but hopefully you'll learn something useful and interesting. Cost, right? So I'm seeing a lot of cost, grades, college fit. Is college even worth it? Which is such a valid question. And that's so it's such a personal question, right? Um, but yeah, right now, what I'm seeing is fit, right? I'm seeing fit. I'm seeing admissions factors. I'm seeing some anxiety about making the right choice for your student, right? For them making that right choice for themselves. And then financing. Very good. Supporting a competitive student. Testing. Awesome. So I think the bigger the word, the more kind of popular that particular concern is. So I'm seeing competitiveness and being prepared, right? Thank you so much for participating in that. I just wanted to get a sense of where we're all at. So I appreciate you giving us that information because, you know, we're all driven here for one reason or another. And it looks like a lot of us are feeling that pressure of finding the right fit, right? Of understanding admissions so that we can help our students become competitive, right? So luckily, we will be touching on a lot of that tonight. For those of you who are thinking about financial aid, we will have an upcoming webinar on January 15th. So please join us for that so you can learn more about the financial aid process. But whatever drove you here tonight, we're hoping that we're going to find some answers for you as we move along. And just thank you for being here because I know that if you're here, you love your child and you want the best for them. And you're trying to learn some stuff about this so that you can guide them as well. So we appreciate you being here. So let's talk about the college planning timeline because I am sure that all of you in here are parents of students of varying ages and different grade levels, right? We probably have parents of 9th and 10th graders in here. And if you are the parent of a 9th or 10th grader, these are some things that you should be focusing on, right? These are some things that we want our freshmen to be focusing on as they're planning for their futures. So A through G requirements are going to be very important, and we're going to touch on that in a little bit, but it's very important that our younger students, even at our middle schools, that they have an understanding of the A through G requirements. And we'll touch on that in a little bit. By ninth or 10th grade, we want students to have an awareness of admissions, right? College admissions, what it takes to be competitive for college. But that's the extent of that college conversation. This time is really a time for students to begin exploring interests, to establish study skills and manage their time, and to begin to learn how to advocate for themselves, to explore interests, careers, right? To explore what makes them tick in the world. But this is really about establishing a foundation of academics, a schedule for themselves, an understanding of themselves, and a cursory kind of understanding of college admissions, right? And then if we move into 11th grade, then we continue on, of course, with that exploration piece. And then we're connecting careers with majors, right? So then we can begin that transition of going from careers to majors and then eventually connecting those majors to post-secondary programs, colleges, community colleges, trade schools, whatever that might be. This is the time that we'll begin talking about college exploration. This is the time that we'll start talking about building an actual college list. And then by the end of 11th grade, we're going right into essay preparation, right? So for my parents of juniors right now, this is prime time for you. This is a great space for you to be in because college admissions should be kind of at the forefront of everybody's minds at this point in a student's academic journey, right? So this is really when we start thinking about colleges and developing those lists so that we're ready to go by the end of junior year, so that going into summer, students can really start preparing for applications and essay writing. And then finally, in 12th grade, after all of that soul searching and list building, right, then we go into the work of applying. And applying can begin as early as August. And Linda will touch on this at the end, so I won't go into it too much. But this is when students will start finishing up their essays that they started maybe over the summer. This is when they'll be applying for financial aid, and usually students will apply in the fall of senior year. And then, of course, there's this waiting period, oftentimes for colleges, depending on how you apply. And then by spring, students will find out what their decisions are from each campus that they apply to. And then they will be submitting an intent to register, SIR, by May 1st. And that is a very exciting time for students. And that's kind of senior year in a nutshell, and more on this to come. Okay, we're really going to break down senior year at the end of the presentation. So let's talk about a couple pathways that students can pursue, right, to get to a four-year college. Because as you know, not everybody goes straight to a four-year college. Even if, it's definitely in the plans, it might not be that a student will go to college immediately following high school. So let's talk about some of the options. So of course, the first option is going directly to a four-year college from high school, right? A student graduates from high school, and then that fall, they are enrolled in a four-year institution and ready to go to a four-year college. So this is a great option for students who know what they want to pursue, right? They have a pretty clear idea that they want to go to a four-year college. They have a decent idea of what environment they want to be in, what they want to study, right? They're very excited to enter into that world, excited to gain that independence, right? Um, and immediate entry into college life has certain benefits, right? And one of those would be the social benefit of engaging in university life right away, right? They're able to kind of begin that network building at that level of higher education. They are engaging in that social aspect of being in college. They're living in the dorms possibly, and they're developing those relationships with friends and professors right off the bat. So it's a great opportunity for our students who are ready for that and ready to transition right into four-year college immediately following high school. But of course, it's not for everybody, right? Some students want to go to a four-year college, but they need some time in between for different reasons. And that's where transferring will come into play, okay? And so as many of you probably already know, transferring is the process of going to a community college first and then transferring as typically a junior into a university. So it's freshman and sophomore year at a community college, and then junior and senior year at the university that they decide to transfer to and get into, right? So this is great for students who aren't ready for university life. This is great for students who are not quite ready to make that transition. Maybe they have some maturing to do. Maybe they're just a little bit anxious about entering into a large kind of setting where there are tens of thousands of students, right? And they need some time to adjust, right? These are students who just need a little bit more time. Um, in other cases, it's a great opportunity to save money. And I can't tell you how many students I work with every year who are valedictorians, right? Who decide to take the transfer route because it's saving them money. Through the California Promise Program, our Orange County community colleges would be free for our students. So you can see why that would be so appealing to families, to save on 2 years worth of tuition and then to send the student off to university after that. You're getting a 50% off discount on college, right? That's hard to beat, especially for our students who are considering law school, right? Um, Med school, professional degrees above and beyond their undergraduate degree. If we're thinking about paying for more school after their 4-year degree, getting those first 2 years paid for certainly is enticing. Right. And of course, transferring from a community college is also a second chance at a dream school, right? So maybe our seniors don't get into their dream school. Maybe they really have their heart set on a specific university and they don't get in for whatever reason. Transferring is that second opportunity to try again, because at that point they're being evaluated based off of their community college grades. And then they could try again for that dream school, right? So it's just a great opportunity for students for a variety of reasons. And of course, those reasons will be very personal to your student. And then finally, another pathway to 4-year college would be to take a gap year, right? And this is when a student takes a year off after graduating from high school. They take a year off because maybe they need a break. Maybe they've just burnt themselves out and they need that time to recoup and to reassess what they want and where they want to study and what they actually want to do. It's great for students who want to pursue a passion or an interest before they head into university life. Maybe they want to travel. Maybe they want to do some volunteer work or mission work with a church, right? There's so many reasons why students would want to take a break, compelling reasons that could not only help them mature and gain life experience, but could possibly make them more competitive for college admissions as well by gaining invaluable life experience. A gap year is great and it can add value to a college application if a student is doing something meaningful with their time or something useful with their time, right? Maybe they're working and gaining really important soft skills and hard skills, right? But if they're doing something useful with their time and they're not just at home going to the beach every day and playing video games, right? It could be a very it could be something that could add value to their college application. And of course, these are just a few options. Students could join the military, right? There are other things that students can do and then go to a 4-year college. We just wanted to touch on a couple options for them. So this is a college admissions webinar. Let's talk college admissions and let's talk college admissions in Capistrano Unified. Okay, so we have some fresh data hot off the press from the National Student Clearinghouse, and this is for the class of 2024. So let's talk about where our students are going and what they're doing. Okay. So first of all, what are our top 10 colleges in Capistrano Unified? So this list of 10 colleges is based on years of graduating classes. This is not just the class of 2024. We don't have that specific data set just yet, but this is across many different classes coming out of Capistrano Unified. These are our top 10 most attended colleges. And it did change a little bit actually from last year to this year. But you'll see here, number one at the top of our list, over 10,000 students across all of these graduating classes are going to Saddleback College, okay? Saddleback is by far the most popular option for many different reasons. It's a great school and it's affordable, and it is number one in our district, followed closely by Cal Poly SLO, right? San Luis Obispo is a very popular school in our district, and then you'll see schools like San Diego State, Cal State Fullerton, IBC, UCLA made it onto the list, right? Our students are amazing. And they're going everywhere. That's the takeaway from this. They're going out of state, they're staying in state, they're going to community college, they're going to public colleges, private colleges, right? They're getting out there. And that's really great to see because we are a college going district, right? Which takes me to my second point, which is what percentage of our graduates are attending college in the fall immediately following graduation? And you'll be happy to learn that 79% of our graduates are going off to college and enrolled in college. Okay, this is based off of enrollment data in colleges following their graduation year, right? That's amazing. Considering that the national average was 62% in 2022. So 62% of high schoolers were immediately enrolling in college. Our district is at 79%. We're doing something right. Right? There was a slight decline actually last year compared to the year before. Last year we were at 80%, and for the class of 2024 we're at 79, but it's not even a full percentage point of a difference really. So there was a bit of a decline, but as you can see, compared to the rest of the nation, our students are doing just fine. In fact, they're doing great. And then finally, where did they enroll, right? So 69% of our graduates are going to public school, and then 10% are going off to private school, 40% to a 4-year, 39 to a 2-year. So it's almost split between community college and 4-year colleges. And then 60% were staying in state. Okay, so this is trends among our students, just something that I thought you might want to know just to get a sense of where our students are going and where some of the most popular schools are. So one important thing that we do want to emphasize with all of you in here is the just vital importance of the A through G requirements. If you do not know what this is, please listen up. The A through G requirements are subject requirements that high school students have to fulfill in order to be eligible to apply to UCs and Cal States. As you saw on that previous list, Cal States and UCs are wildly popular in our district, and our students are going there. But the only way that they can get in is if they meet the A through G requirements. And this is something that we need to know entering into high school so that our students are taking the courses necessary throughout high school and earning the grades necessary to be eligible to apply to our amazing institutions in state, right? So keep in mind that we list here on the screen the minimum eligibility requirements. These are the minimum requirements that students have to fulfill in order to meet those A through G requirements, and they have to obtain a C or higher in these courses. D's and F's will not count. Okay. Keep in mind that there's a difference between being eligible to apply and being competitive for selection. Okay. So what you see on the screen is the minimum requirements. However, we encourage students to go above and beyond in years based on their comfort level, their their sense of strengths as far as subjects go and where they want to challenge themselves, right? 2 years of a language other than English, but the UCs recommend 3 to 4 years. So just keep in mind that there is a difference between meeting minimum eligibility and being selected for admission. But also, I know these are UC and Cal State specific. However, by completing the A through G requirements, students are making themselves competitive for the majority of 4-year institutions out there, right? By meeting these minimum requirements, students do open up, their opportunities to apply to most of the 4-year colleges in the country. Okay, so every 4-year college is going to be a little bit different outside of the UC and Cal State system, but these requirements really do help students become kind of widely eligible and competitive for admissions into different universities. And also keep in mind, excuse me, that while A through G requirements are college admissions requirements, by taking these courses, we are ensuring that students are college and career ready. Because when students go above and beyond in these subjects, right, when they're taking these A through G requirements, they're learning vital skills that will help them not only in college, but in whatever career that they choose, right? They're gaining writing skills, critical thinking skills, computation skills, mathematical skills that would apply to not only college, but any career that they might choose down the line. Right? So we want to emphasize that A through G is not just for the college bound, but it's for everybody because it benefits all students, right? So something to keep in mind. Let's go ahead and move on and talk a little bit about selectivity in college admissions.
Yes, that's me. That is my cue. So hi, Brianne here again. So I'm going to chat with you a little bit about selectivity, colleges, what they're looking for. So let's just talk about that term a little bit. When we say selectivity, we're talking really about, I would say about 100 colleges are considered selected, that we would use that term, that would be lower than about a 50% admit rate. That's typically the level that we say for selective schools. There are roughly about 40 with lower than 20% admit rates. And everyone else in the college space, in the United States, which is about 2,500 schools or more, most of them are admitting 2/3 or more of the students that apply. So when we talk about selective schools, we're really only looking at 100 to 150 specific schools out of thousands of options. So it's really good news, right? That's good news in college admissions. You are hearing all these stories, right, at parties about like the valedictorian that didn't get in anywhere. I hear them all the time from my families, but I always tell them the follow-up question should be, what was that college list? Because that's what I always ask. And if that valedictorian truly didn't get in anywhere, then that college list was created poorly and probably with only selectivity in mind. So you'll hear these scary stories, but I'm here to tell you that there's actually a lot of good news in college admissions, and the selectivity really applies to a very small number of schools in the United States. So let's chat a little bit more about some numbers that I think might help put this into perspective. So you can see on here, I won't read them all out, but giving you some ideas around the college acceptance rate for just in general, 73%, right? 2/3, that's even more than that, that are admitting students, most of the students who apply. Public colleges in the United States are even higher. Private colleges are around the same. And then you can see the average number of applications per institute, as well as public schools and private schools as far as the number of applications they receive. So keeping that in mind, I want to give you a little bit of perspective around California schools, because I think this is helpful to know when we're talking about UCs, especially because they are getting more selective. There's only a few of them in the state. They are taking all of the applications from in-state and out-of-state students. So to compare, we're looking at, you can see that average number of applications submitted is around 8,000 for schools. Well, Berkeley, I just updated these numbers with the ones they just released this fall. So Berkeley, you see Berkeley received 126,000 applications this past application cycle, giving them an admit rate of 11%. UCLA received 146,000 applications. I believe they still might be the college in the United States that gets the most applications. That put them at a 9% admit rate. Davis received 99,000 applications, which is still a high number, but their admit rate sits at around 42%. So significantly better than the other UCs I just mentioned. But like I said before, if it's 50% or fewer students who are admitted, then they would still be considered a selective college. And then UC Irvine is 123,000 applications this last cycle, putting them at 28% admit rate. Now, all of those numbers are average. It will vary depending on the major. Admit rates might be higher for certain majors and a little bit lower for those that are going to be more competitive, like, you know, engineering and computer science. So I don't say that to scare you about UCs. I just want to give you a perspective because we live in a very different world in California when we're talking about the UC schools and public institutions. But that's a good reason to look at schools in other parts of the country. In fact, we have a little map for you that will show you all the colleges and universities across the US. Now, does this show you all 2,500 or 3,000 of them? No, there's not a dot for every single one, but you can see how many there are across the United States. And there are plenty that admit almost everybody who applies. So consider looking at schools outside of that highly selective range. For comparison, we have another map for you. So these are colleges that are accepting at a rate of less than 40%. You see how different that is, right? It's a much smaller number. If you compare that to that last image that we were just looking at, which there we go, perfect. It's significantly different. But to me, I see that as good news. I see this as, okay, great. We've got a few schools that are going to be really selective, but we have tons of options that are going to have amazing programs that we can look at that are going to give our students lots of options. So students and families will often focus on just a few schools, and that's kind of what causes the lower admit rate, right? It tends to be a cycle. If you are looking at the schools that are highly selective and choosing those schools because of brand name or whatever reason, you know, you love that football team and you've been following that football team, you know, your whole life, then you're feeding into that, right? That's how they get more applications. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just that you hear about those same schools, so that tends to be the focus. It doesn't indicate whether or not that school's a better program or a better experience or a better fit for your student. It just means that they're popular. And it's a regional thing. So for example, students here will say, oh my gosh, I have to go to USC, which by the way, is closer to a 6% admit rate now, which is wild considering that when I started doing this 14 years ago, I think they were closer to a 30% admit rate, which is still selective. But students will talk about that school, and I will tell you that I work with students on the East Coast, and they don't have any concept of what USC is. That's University of South Carolina for them. That's not our USC. So I think it's a good perspective to understand that sometimes it's regional, that we're really focused on certain schools, but that doesn't mean that that school is a better school or a better opportunity. And maybe thinking about some schools that might be in other areas would be a good way to open up that list option for you. So let's talk about the factors in the admissions decision. The most important piece here is academics. So that's why you'll see that first thing there is showing kind of grades, and then it'll talk about rigor. The most important piece are what classes you're taking. You are going to college to study something, right? So it makes sense that a college wants to know how you're doing in your classes. They want to know if you're challenging yourself. So that's why you'll see that rigor column as well. That's what that means. Are you pushing yourself? Are you taking harder classes? But you need to balance that with grades. As you can see, that's also a very important aspect. So for every student, that will be different. I advise students who have GPA ranges of 2.7s all the way up to 4 point whatevers. And I advise each student differently. I tell all of them that they should push themselves. But for some students, that might mean taking that extra year of Spanish, pushing into Spanish 3, taking an extra year of science that's beyond the requirement. That is still considered rigor because you're going above and beyond. For another student, it might be taking honors, taking AP classes. So do what works for you so that you can balance that. And then character really matters. This can be found in essays, your letters of recommendation, the activities you do. Colleges are looking to see, how are you making an impact in your community around you? That doesn't have to be things like volunteering. It can be on a team, it can be in a club, it can be doing a hobby. So how are you impacting people? How are you exploring your passions and your interests? And the essays are a good way for them to find out more about you and learn about something that they might not hear about in the other parts of the application. So you can see a little bit of a layout there in the percentages of the importance of these pieces for the application, knowing that the grades and the rigor, as you can see, is the most important part. Because again, like we said, college is an institution for education. So they want to make sure that you are doing a great job in the classes you're taking. So let's chat about, I know, the most exciting topic that we are going to talk about tonight, which is testing. And I'm sure there's lots of questions and groaning happening about this now, but here's some good news. Most colleges are still test optional in some capacity, though there have been a few schools that have shifted back to using some terms like test required or test preferred, even as a new one that we're seeing. For example, Purdue shifted back, I believe it was last year, to being test preferred. And like MIT made that decision last year to require tests, and we're seeing some other schools start to come back online with that. However, it's not a massive shift back. We're talking 5-6 schools a year sort of popping back up and saying, hey, we're going to want tests again. But for the most part, when schools went to test optional during the COVID pandemic, a lot of them stayed that way. So we're still in that place. To find out which colleges are test optional or what they require, as you can see those kind of different topics there, test optional, test required, test blind, or test free, you can go to fairtest.org, which is listed right there in that second column. You can look that up. You can look up the school and it'll tell you their testing policies. And they do keep that pretty darn up to date. So look at the colleges that you are applying to. See if a test is required. So that way you can understand what tests are required. If you have a list of a few schools and all of them are test optional, maybe your testing decisions will be a little different. You also might want to think about, are you good at testing? If you're great at testing and you tend to knock those out of the park and you say, yeah, I go in and I take tests, and I do a great job on those. I love multiple choices. Then you might just want to test anyway. Even if your schools are test optional, maybe take a test. Because if your test is great and you end up with a great score, even for the schools that are test optional, as you can see on the screen there, scores are considered if they are submitted. So you can still send those scores to be considered as part of your overall academic profile if they're great test scores. So look and see if colleges require testing for scholarships as well. That's another thing to check. Typically, if a school is test optional for admissions, often they are for scholarships, but it's not universal. Fairtest.org tries to call out those schools where they know that, but you can always check the school's website and they're usually pretty clear about that there, or double check with the college. So SAT or ACT, take a practice test. That's what it says there. And I agree with that. take a practice test of each to know which one you're stronger in. It's like Coke and Pepsi, you know, they're just two flavors of the same vibe. We're talking about standardized tests that test very similar things, but the timing is a little bit different. The sections are laid out a little bit differently. So some students tend to do better on one or the other, and about half of the students do roughly the same on them. So take a practice test, see where you're testing. You'll get a better idea of how that matches to the colleges you're applying to, and also whether or not you should take or focus on one of those tests. I believe Futureology offers practice tests so that you can take those, and that way you can determine which one to focus on. And then for submitting test scores, I'll add this in here, only submit your test scores to schools who are test optional if the test scores fall within the middle 50% of test scores where they admit. A lot of schools will just post that right on their website. If not, you can search around and there's some websites that will post that kind of thing. But if you have a score and you aren't sure if you should send it, if you're landing in the middle range of the tests that they admit, then it's probably a good idea to go ahead and send it. If you're below that, then I would have you withhold that and say your test optional. So we made it through the testing. So how do colleges actually evaluate the applicants? There's these two pieces. Academic index is one way to look at it, in holistic review. So we'll chat about that and then talk a little bit more about holistic review in a second. But some schools only look at the academics when they are reviewing a student. It's pretty obvious the ones that do that because they will only ask for those things. So they will only ask for grades, tests if they're required, and want to know the classes you're in. Cal States are one of these. The Cal State system, which includes Cal Poly, all the Cal Polys actually, they're only looking at academics. When you fill out a Cal State application, you'll see that you're only putting in the classes you've taken and the grades you've received. And in fact, they don't look at tests because they are test free. So that doesn't even factor in. Another school that will be looking at grades only would be like Arizona State. They are often larger public schools because they're less concerned about the fit of a student on their college campus, because it's a big college, not because they don't think that stuff's important, but it's a big college and they can take lots of different types of students, and those students will find their niche on their campus. But a smaller private school might be more concerned about, are you a good fit here? So we need to ask for a few more things to make sure that you're going to be successful on our campus. So when we're looking at holistic review, you're going to see the grades and the course rigor and all of those things still matter and are usually the most important piece. But you will also see extracurricular activities, your essays, letters of recommendation from teachers and from counselors. Some schools will offer interviews. Very few require them, but you can check that on the school's website. Those types of things will come into play with the academic piece to see who you are as kind of an overall human being when they're reviewing you for admissions. So with that, let's talk about one of the biggest parts of that, which is that love of learning. So when they're looking at a holistic review to say, who are you? Not just the classes you're taking and the things you're doing academically, but what kind of stuff drives you? What are you passionate about? That's your love of learning, which can be different for every student, right? It's like it says there, everything other than your grades. So what are they looking for? It's very true for selective college admissions that they are going to be looking for this kind of thing, but you'll also see this in other schools that are interested to know who you are. So taking hard classes just to weight your GPA is not what they're looking for. That's generally good advice anyway, but in holistic admissions where they're paying attention to that level of learning, just taking a harder class isn't what this is. So if you think, oh, I heard Brianne say love of learning, great, I'm going to add one more AP class, check that box, now I'm good. That's not what I'm saying. Just taking a college course in the summer to boost your GPA is also not a good way to do that, even though it seems like the simple answer. They want you to show them that you are interested in the things that you are doing. So, do you love history? Maybe you take those courses in honors or AP so that you can, learn more about that. Maybe you do take a college course on the history of film or something in a subject that you're really interested in. Do you like math? Maybe you take as much math as you can. Maybe you join a math club. As you see on there, it's not just classes, right? It can be outside projects and organizations and clubs and things that you can get involved in to show that you are interested in pursuing the things that you like. I'll give you an example of one of my students who is in college now, but she wanted to major in business, but she loved theater and art, and she was super involved in her theater program at school. She really was also interested in psychology, so she took a few college courses on psychology because her course didn't offer it. So she was showing that she loved those classes and wanted to learn more about them. And she did talk about that in her application. It wasn't just oh, I checked the box and took a college course. And even though she was interested in majoring in business, she really got interested in the arts programs and pursued that passion as well. So in that holistic review, you're seeing this person who's pursuing these passions and interests, and that is put in tandem with the academic piece so they can kind of see that whole person. So so hopefully I gave you some good tips to understand that holistic review of applications, and I'll let the rest of the team dive into the other stuff here.
Awesome. Thank you, Brianne. Every time I think of love of learning, I think of a student that I worked with who ended up at Princeton. And I've told the story before, but it just reminds me of it. So I'm gonna tell it again. But he applied as a chem major, but his whole life was music. He was a violinist and a violist, and everything he did related to his love of music. And he was admitted as a chem major, right? So it just goes to show that love of learning can be within kind of your area of interest, which is really helpful for colleges because they do care that you're exploring your major of choice outside of school. But also, in the case of this student, he was in love with something and he went to the ends of the earth to be good at it, right? And to demonstrate his ability in it while also being a stellar student in the sciences. So just something that I thought of. But let's transition a little bit into going from college admissions, right, and the state of college admissions in the country and what colleges are looking for. And let's talk about college fit. Okay, so 64% of full-time undergraduate students graduated from a four-year college within 6 years in 2020. Okay, so this is slightly older data, but it's still compelling data. Okay, so 64% of students were graduating from college within 6 years. And oftentimes, when we look at grad rates for colleges, they'll give you the 6 year graduation rate, even though we know that students should be graduating within four. So keep that in mind. But when I look at this number, I always think about the students who don't graduate within that time frame, right? Who don't graduate at all, possibly. And as a counselor, this is something that motivates me when I look at a number like this because I wonder what's happening to those students who don't successfully graduate from college. And at the end of the day, it comes down to poor fit. And oftentimes it could be something like financial fit, right? Usually that's a top reason for why students don't persist in college, right? But then there's also social fit and academic fit. There are so many factors that go into why college doesn't fit for a student, which is why we want to have a conversation with our students, sooner than later about what makes a college a good fit for them, right? So what we want all of our families to embrace is a fit over rankings mentality. And to know that great college experiences happen everywhere, we want to step away from this notion that going to a name brand college will somehow automatically ensure your students' happiness, their success, their employment outcomes upon graduation, their graduation outcomes, right? Research coming out of Stanford's Graduate School of Education, right? There's a nonprofit organization out of that program called Challenge Success. And what they found in their research was that the name brand of a college has no bearing whatsoever on a student's success after having graduated from a college. Name brand has no impact on students' sense of satisfaction from going to that school, their sense of happiness, their employment outcomes, their financial outcomes, right? How much money they're making upon graduation. None of that was tied to the name brand of the school. And if there was even just a tiny inkling of there being some kind of what they noticed is maybe there was a slight increase in financial success, but that was generally for students who were first generation or socioeconomically disadvantaged when they entered into the school, right? But generally, no connection between success, and the name brand of the school. What they did find was that a reliable predictor of student learning, job satisfaction, and well-being had to do with things like their personal traits, right? Were they, taking the initiative when they were in school, right? What did they major in? What were their ambitions? And most importantly, were they engaging in that campus? Were they taking advantage of what was given to them on campus, whether that was internship opportunities or research opportunities? But a big takeaway is when students take advantage of what is given to them on the college campus, they find a greater sense of belonging. They build networks to ensure post graduation success, right? Not a matter of where they go, it's how they are engaging when they are there. And if you think about your students in high school right now and you ask them about their experiences in their high school, those that are engaged, that have a community of friends who are in organizations, clubs, theater, right, ASB, those students tend to feel more connected to school and will graduate with a sense of feeling happy that they were there, right? That they belonged there and, will find success thereafter. So just something for you to think about. We link here to the white paper that I'm referring to. Would love for all of you to take a look at it when you have some time. But let's talk a little bit more about College Fit.
Yeah, so kind of going off of what Ms. Nguyen said about fit over rankings, I know sometimes we think more about what do I need to do in order to be selected or chosen by a particular college. But when we think about college fit, I think it's a good idea to also flip that question around and say, what do I want in a college experience? It's going to be the next 4 years where your child will be spending the next 4 years developing as an adult, exploring majors and programs for potential careers postgraduate, and kind of that's going to be their launching pad into adulthood. And so when we think about it in that sense, there are going to be very pertinent questions that we want to ask. And so just starting out with, I know social factors, right? So for the parents in the room, you probably remember your college experience, and the social aspect of it was huge, right? Not only the types of friends that you're going to develop, the networking that's going to happen, but the things that will help feel you comfortable and at home, and where you can kind of, like Ms. Nguyen was saying, find that sense of belonging. And some of the factors that will go into that will be location. Are you willing to explore outside of Southern California? Or is there a particular reason you want to stay in Southern California, right? What about the size of the school? Does that matter to you? And, I don't think we think really deeply about this, but, when we ask students like very specific questions, how is the size of your school now at Aliso Niguel or at Capistrano Valley? Does that feel big for you? Does that feel small for you? Would you like to have a smaller setting where you can get to know your peers better? Or are you able to find your niche in a big pool and a big sea of students? So size. We think about athletics. So not every college will have a football team. Does that matter to you? Would you like to tailgate and go to games and, and be a part of that sports world? Are you a student athlete yourself? Would you like to play, if not at the collegiate level, maybe even just intramural sports? Does that matter to you? What kinds of organizations do you care about? And this could be an extension of the organizations that you may already be involved in high school, such as ASB, music programs, theater programs. You want to find a space where you can find these clubs and organizations that will help you meet students of similar interests. So kind of exploring what organizations do they have on that campus. A big one also is commuter versus residential, right? So this is going to be a big dividing factor. Right, like our community colleges, most of them they're all pretty much commuter schools. The only one in our area with a dorm facility is going to be Orange Coast College in Costa Mesa. But besides that, the Cal State universities were also designed to be commuter schools that are serving their local area. So now they're developing more dorms for the Cal State campuses, and so the residential feel could be experienced on those campuses as well. But would you like to live with your family? Would you like to dorm on campus? These are important questions. Greek life, religious affiliation is also huge. I've seen students say that they want to pursue a specific college because of their religious affiliation and why that's meaningful for them. And then diversity, right? We're very lucky in Southern California to have schools that, have students from varying backgrounds, very diverse, but in different parts of the country that may not necessarily be the case. And so how important is that to you in order for you to feel like you belong and that you can find your group of peers to kind of complete the next 4 years with. And then again, for the parents, right, this is going to be important as well. But the financial part of it is, can I afford it? What does the affordability look like? And we have a net price calculator linked on here. If you go onto this website and you type up the school, it will find the school's net price calculator for you. Every college and university is required to have a net price calculator on their website. So based on, some basic questions, you can kind of get an estimate of what it might cost you and your family to attend that school. So when we look at financial fit, we also want to create a diverse list there. If we can add in some private schools and public schools, and then we won't know what the ultimate cost will be until after a student is admitted based on their FAFSA, their institution-based scholarships. With their admissions decision, they are going to receive their financial aid award package, and then that's when you'll see the final cost of what it might, what it'll be. So we want to give you a warning here to be careful with early decision. Early decision applications require you to commit if admitted to that school, and that happens early on in December. So with that being said, your financial aid award package is actually not available that early. And so we want you to make sure that you are doing an estimate with your net price calculator to see if financially it will be an option for you. And then if you can, then early decision would be for your top one school that you are saying, I'm wholeheartedly committed if I'm accepted. Also, keeping up your grades, no matter what grade level you're at, these open you up to varying grants, like the Cal grant in the state of California is also dependent on your grades. So that's a factor that can increase your financial fit. And then also lots of schools will have varying degrees of scholarships available, especially merit-based scholarships are going to look heavily at your grades. So we encourage all of you to apply for financial aid. It is a requirement for all high school seniors to complete this application. So if you are a senior or senior parents, please, the application is open right now. And so the financial aid application should be filled out, sent to all of the schools that you are applying to, and then they will use that information to craft together a financial aid award package for you. Lastly, academic. Hugely important because this is an extension of the next 4 years of your learning, right? So will I learn well at this school? First of all, do they offer the major or program that I'm interested in? And a lot of students sometimes will be shocked to find out that, oh my gosh, I've been looking at this school the whole time because of this name brand, but they actually don't offer the major that I really want. And so we don't want that happening later on, which means that research is required beforehand. Also thinking about what opportunities are there for research or internship, and does this school do well in graduating their students on time and also in retaining their students year after year. So thinking about that, if you're a learner where you're like, I love small learning environments, I really need that attention from my professor, then you're going to want to also look at that ratio of student to faculty. So we want to look at credential matching, right? Because when we look at academics, we want to go to a school that we fit into academically. And so what does that mean for credential matching? So this is the process of evaluating a student's credentials, academic credentials, so their GPA, their test score if available, and then comparing those academic credentials to the credentials of a student, an average student who is being admitted to that school. And so what that's going to do is that's going to give me an idea about where might I land in the admissions landscape for that school. What the other factor for credential matching that's really important to consider is the college's acceptance rate. Because just because I am in the mid 25th to 75th percentile of the average admitted GPAs, if that school has a 5% acceptance rate, then that school is considered a reach school for everybody, just because of the mere number of students that they're accepting out of that pool, right? And so we're going to take a look at this a little bit more closely. So I know a lot of us, we have heard of the likely, the match, and the reach schools. So the likely schools are schools that we generally say they have a 70% or higher acceptance rate, right? And so these are schools where your average credentials are not only within and higher, but they also have a higher acceptance rate. They're accepting 70% of their applicants. And then when we look at the target schools, it means that you are right in that middle of the top range, right, of their average. So if a school says that their 25th to 75th percentile is a 3.0 to 3.75, then you may land somewhere, at like a 3.4 to 3.5. And then along with that, if they have a 50 to 70% acceptance rate, we can say that, okay, you are in the target range for this school. Lastly, we've got the reach schools, right? So the reach schools are where you are slightly lower or below average in that school's range of accepted students. So you may be on the lower end, or your averages might actually be lower than the 25th percentile. Then we would consider this a reach school, meaning it's going to be a little bit more of a selective process for you to be admitted based on your credentials, but also based on the acceptance rate. If they are 39% or lower, then this is going to be a reach school for you. So based on this, we want you to craft a very diverse list, right? So you're going to want your likely, target, and reach. And how I envision this is as like a pyramid, right? So your reach schools are going to be at the top, and kind of as you come down to target and likely, we want those schools to take up the majority of your list, so that in the spring semester you have many opportunities and many different options to choose from. If your list becomes reach heavy, then not only are your chances lowered because those schools in itself are highly selective, there might not be as many options for you to choose from come the spring semester. Right, so taking that into consideration, we want you to conduct a college search and really think about the factors that we discussed. And each of these websites are going to show you and ask you for criteria that's important to you. So when they're asking you about size, location, majors, and programs, those are really the things that you're going to want to think about and have some options for how you want to narrow that list down, so that we can go from that huge map we saw. There's so many different colleges and universities out there. Not all of them are going to have the same offerings, right? And so those criteria, it's going to help you narrow down your list even further. California Colleges is a free tool that's available to all CUSD students. You can access this through Clever, and it'll log you right in. And under the college search tool, you can search for particular colleges, do a general college search, but each of these are also going to show you the acceptance rates at that school under the admissions tab. So it also shows you the academic profile of what the average high school GPA of accepted students are. So this should also be factored in when you are kind of slotting your schools into the reach, likely, and target schools. Really, what's important is that we want a well-balanced list. So for every like 2 to 3 reach schools, we want to make sure we have even more likely and target schools. And so, like I said, just remember that pyramid is going to be a good visual to remember. On average, our students are applying to around 10 schools. There's no set number. There's no minimum. There's no maximum. I've seen students apply to upwards of 20 and 30. That's a lot. And then, students who might really just know what they want and they just apply to a select few that are more safety and likely schools. But really, the important thing here is that it is well balanced. So we want to have a list where for those reach schools, we have enough likely and target schools that we know we have a good chance of getting in so that we can maximize our options and opportunities. So what does the timeline look like for a senior? So our senior timeline will begin in the summer. So by the summer in June to October, we envision a student really finalizing their college list. So hopefully you've done that research. We're going to provide those research tools through this slide presentation, but all of those offer very unique different types of searches. You're gonna probably see certain ones that come up again and again in your search, and those might be the ones you might start out with, right? But by June into the fall semester, we want you to finalize that college list so that you can actually begin the applications once they open. You will also start to brainstorm and draft any college essays, as well as for activities and awards. And Futureology is going to hold workshops and appointments over the summer so that if you need assistance with any of this, there's opportunities for you to get assistance with that. So August is when most of those applications will open. The UCs and the common application open August 1st. And then the Cal States and community colleges will open in October. So that at that point, you can start to create your accounts and begin your college applications. For private schools that require letters of recommendation, you can go ahead and request that early on in the fall semester to the teachers or counselors that are required to fill those out, and then you will submit by the deadline. So for UCs and Cal States, this year it was December 2nd. Typically the deadline is November 30th. And then the privates and out of state are going to vary each by school and campus. Most of them might have rolling deadlines, but they will also, regular decision deadlines tend to be in January. And then for community college, we highly encourage our students to submit by January so that they get the freshman advantage and can get priority registration. These are continuously open. If you don't meet it by January, that's okay. They have an open application all the way until classes start. But again, submitting earlier will give you that freshman advantage. And then in December is when the financial aid application opens. So for us, seniors now, the application is now open, and the priority deadline is March 3rd for you to be eligible for state aid as well as federal aid. So that March 3rd is a priority deadline. We do want to just remind you that not only the FAFSA or CADA, but certain private schools may also have additional financial aid applications called the CSS profile. So you want to look at each of those requirements separately. And then in the spring is when you can expect those decisions to come back, right? So in March, if you had a balanced school list, then you're going to have a balanced decision list to choose from. So you will get to weigh your options, not only the acceptances, but you'll get to weigh and compare, see what those financial aid awards look like at each of those schools, what they're offering to you, and then the commitment date will be May 1st. Okay, and then in the spring semester, after you graduate, we will be sending final transcripts. Those are going to be due by July 1st to the one college that you end up committing to. There are some resources on this slide as well. So regarding UC PIQs, activities, essays, cost of college, and then what to do after you're accepted. We've got plenty of resources on here, so please take advantage of those as well. So this is a parent success orientation, right? So we want to encourage you parents in terms of what is your role? What can you do to help support your students during and into this college journey? If you are parents of, younger grade levels, especially 9th or 10th grade, we really, the best thing that you can do is encourage your students to pursue their interests, right? This is going to open up their love of learning and really discover what it is that they enjoy. When seniors get to the college application and then they have to choose a major, of course, undecided can be an option for certain schools, but typically students should or have some idea about what field that they want to pursue based on what they've done in 9th through 12th grade. And so the best thing that we can do is kind of help them to develop their own identity in these interests and really think about what subjects do I enjoy? How can I really elaborate on this outside of the classroom? What other things can I get involved in that, help me explore the interest if I don't have any interests at this time. So really helping your students to do that, but not just at school, but outside of school would be really helpful too. We want you to help monitor their A through G status. We talked about those A through G requirements, and your students' A through G status can be monitored through California colleges, also on ARIES, and so we highly encourage you to help monitor that so that they are on track to meet their college requirements in order to apply. And also to be open to the college options and pathways, just like we discussed today. I know that if our list of schools that we know the name brand of is this much, then the number of colleges that are out there is really this much. And so we want you to be open and consider the other factors and pathways for college for your child, not to narrow your student into one pathway. Okay, you're just going to do this because this is the best option, but really to explore all options that are available for them, especially as they get into senior year. When I see a student who's eligible for multiple options, I say apply to them all and then see what comes back, and you don't have to commit until the spring semester. So even if you are wanting to pursue the transfer route or you feel like Saddleback is a really great option because you'll save money, that's great. But for those of our students who have met the 4-year eligibility, I also encourage them to apply and see what comes back, not just financially, but also in terms of acceptances. So that may be varying possibilities for your student as well. I know that this is we are in a very competitive time, right, in our lives for our students. They're going to be comparing themselves all the time. Where's my friend applying? Where are they getting into? What do they want to do? So if you can encourage them to really develop their own sense of identity. It's okay. They don't need to compare. They don't need to do all that their friends are doing, but this is going to be their decision for college purposes. That would be really helpful. We talked about credential matching, so the better ways that you can help them credential match, the more options it'll open up for them in the future, and really letting them take the lead, because this is going to be the next 4 to 6 years of their schooling, of their social life. They're going to be the ones completing those degrees. And so really helping them take the lead and supporting them in that, whether it be taking them on college tours or looking at different websites. Video tours are online as well for those schools that are far away. Just having them kind of voice what it is that they want would be really helpful in kind of developing their sense of ownership over the process. So we really encourage that. We've also linked a parent page from Big Future that would be helpful for you as well. So just, we are coming to the end of our presentation. Upcoming events that we are going to provide as Futurology to help support you and your students in all things college and career. We are continuing our webinar Wednesdays in the spring semester with some different topics. So our flyer is on here. Please register for these. We love seeing you at our webinars. So these are going to be the topics that are set for the spring semester. We have lots of tutorial support. So every high school site will have tutorial lessons that our college counselors are conducting based on varying topics, right? So all of these topics open to all grade levels in the spring semester. And so please encourage your students to come get tutorial support for this. Our one-on-one appointments are ongoing. So we have the option of having online appointments, or you can make appointments with your counselor at school as well. So we have a page on Futurology where you have access to all of the counselor's Calendlies, and you can register for an appointment. Our webinar registration, our webinar registration will open in January. So just keep an eye out for that. You can take a picture of that QR code, come back to that in January, but this is also going to be posted on our website as well as included in this presentation. So thank you so much for attending. We hope that this was helpful information for all of you. We have the QR code to the post survey, and Ms. Nguyen just posted it in our chat as well. So if you can please complete the post survey, it's going to be the same questions as your pre-survey, but we want to be able to measure your knowledge and see if our presentation helped increase that knowledge for all of you. So please take a moment to complete our post survey before you leave. We will stay on here for a couple additional questions. But other than that, thank you so much for joining tonight. We hope you have a fabulous evening.
Thank you so much, everybody. And again, thank you for completing that post survey. We are data driven. We want to know that we did our job. So hopefully you learned something tonight, and we appreciate you being here. We'll hang back for some questions. If you have any, feel free to put them in the Q&A.
I do see some questions in the chat, so maybe we can answer some of these live. So there's a question in here about any benefits to submitting your applications early. Are they read in order, in the order of being submitted? So for certain private schools, they may see and read. So schools, especially with rolling admissions, they're going to read those applications as they come in. For certain schools, it may be beneficial. Others, like UCs and Cal States, it's just a hard deadline. They're reading all of those after that deadline, so there's no benefit for you to submit early versus right on time. The early application cycles, like early action and early decision, are slightly different. Those are read in an earlier pool. And so the difference between early action and decision is that early action is a non-binding agreement, which means you're submitting your application early to find out the decision earlier, and it's a non-binding commitment. For the early action pool, usually the acceptance rates are similar, if not slightly higher than the regular decision round. With early decision, it is a binding commitment, so those acceptance rates tend to be slightly higher. But again, there's lots of things to consider and factor in as you apply ED, because you are saying, if I am admitted here, I'm withdrawing all of my other applications. So hopefully that's helpful. Oh, the email address for Brianne is actually on this slide. So if you want to take a picture of that, her email is on there. B, do you want to take the next question for scholarships?
Sure. I don't know where it is. Let me try to find it.
Oh, it's under the Q&A.
Oh, yeah. So is there a site that matches scholarships to your student? Yes. Let me get the link for you. Actually, we have a whole handout for you, multiple sites that you can use to match a student to scholarships. Websites like FastWeb, CapEx, Niche, right? Big Future or College Board. I am going to find that link. I'm going to put it in the chat for you right now. We have a Futurology handout on getting started with scholarships. In fact, our individual high schools have local scholarship pages as well, so that our students can go search for local scholarships, regional scholarships, state and national scholarships. So I'm going to link to that guide right now for you. I'm going to have to stop sharing for just a second.
There is also a question in here for our YouTube channel, so I will go ahead and post that or comment on there. That is Futureology's YouTube channel, and it has various videos and resources for you.
Okay, dropping that link in the chat right now. Here we go. Here's the scholarship link. What other questions do we have?
I think that was the last one. You kind of answered the next scholarship questions. You can apply for scholarships even if you're not accepted. So any external scholarships that are open to the grade levels or whatever eligibility criteria that they set, you can apply to those external scholarships and reference the page that Ms. Nguyen just sent out. And so those are going to be varying. It can be open to all high school, juniors, senior specific. And so those are all going to have their own deadlines. So you would want to apply within those deadlines for those specific scholarships. Grants are going to be part of the financial aid application process. So that will be in senior year. When you apply for the FAFSA, you will be automatically considered for the Cal Grant. And I think that's it for tonight. Ms. Nguyen, I don't know if you see anything else.
I don't, and thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. We love being here for our families. Brianne, thank you so much for joining our team tonight and sharing your expertise. We are so grateful for your knowledge and your willingness to share your time with our family, so we appreciate you. But thank you all so much, and we will see you at the next one. Have a great winter break, and we'll pick this right back up in the spring. Good night, everybody.